What's up guys, welcome to another video. I was not planning on making any content of this car at all. I wasn't going to make a video of this at all, but I just finished up the loom and I thought, big jam. I'm really happy with how the loom went and how the wiring goes, and it's actually something that we don't often film or actually do really. The only wiring I've really done that I put on the channel was the Fish and Drift's R33.4 when we sponsored it last year and put the Motec in it, and I did the whole loom for that. And that was sort of my first go at doing an entire engine loom start to finish. I was really happy with the result. It looked awesome. I feel like the quality and the standard was really good, and the best thing was when I put it in the car, everything just worked. We had zero wiring issues and I was absolutely stoked. So this is the first sort of wiring job that I'm doing for someone else, or like a paying customer. It's a guy I went to school with, so I know him pretty well. But this here is a GU Patrol, as you can see, big GU. He's an alley worker, he built the trail himself and stuff like that. So big 4B, it's been RB30 converted turbo, and it came here with a NIS tune in it. So he had some issues with the NIS tune. He asked me if I would tune it. I pretty much told him I'm not touching the NIS tune, I don't want to know about it. So I sent him in the direction of a workshop that I know does still work with this tune, down there on the coast, and they persisted and tried their best with it. They ended up putting new injectors in it because they had issues with the injectors that were in it. They were pretty crap, but you know, an S-tune pad with not very good injectors is a recipe for disaster. So they put some decent injectors in it, so we got some Bosch 1000s, new rail, so that's all really awesome. And basically they just persisted and did their best with the NIS tune, but at the end of the day, it's a NIS tune and it just ran like a dog, and he just still wasn't happy with it. So if he had listened to my advice in the first place, he could have avoided that whole part of that story. It would have just come here for what it's getting right now, but he wanted to persist with the NIS tune, then he ended up costing him a lot of time and money, and now it's here getting the NIS tune ripped out. So as well as that, is it just had an eBay GD3076 on it, and just a standard intake plenum. He decided to replace the eBay turbo with a Pulsar GDX Gen 2 3076, so a much better performing unit. And he did supply a Plasma Man top half forward facing plenum. Beautiful piece, looked awesome, but unfortunately because this is in a Patrol, the Plasma Man top half actually failed on the clutch booster, so we couldn't run the Plasma Man manifold. We ended up getting Ryan there at Elite Fabworks to build us a custom forward facing plenum, which we've got here, which fits much better on the Patrol. It's a much better way to go. We still use the Plasma Man throttle body, which is awesome. So Ryan there at Elite actually managed to get a Plasma Man flange to weld on. So yeah, awesome little piece of kit. All of the R31s we've built on the channel all have received this style of intake manifold, and we've always been super happy with them. So absolutely stoked with that. So that's going on instead of the Plasma Man unit, which is all well and good. So we got Pulsar GDX 3076, that forward facing, plus the idea was to pull out all the NIS tune stuff and put in a nice little Haltech Elite 750, which is a much better ECU for what we're doing. So I've pulled out all of the NIS tune and all of the engine loom and stock wiring. There's a lot of things that we're going to change as we go. There's a lot of stuff in the intake manifold that's no longer required that we've removed now. Things like where he's got a reference for the wastegate is from a vacuum source, which is not particularly correct. So we'll change all that as we go. We're going to change some intake piping and stuff as we go as well. So it's going to be a fair bit going on. But anyway, point is, I built a new loom for the Haltech, which I'm really stoked to show off. So over here we've got all of the old loom, old NIS tune stuff pulled out. All of that grossness out of the car, so no good. Like obviously the workshop they were at, they did their best to persist with it, but like I said, it's just, NIS tune just sucks, man. It's just old and crappy, and like that's pretty much how it was integrated into the car. Not very tidy, just relays and spades and stuff all over the joint. Crap. And this is what I've just finished off. So this is our new bespoke loom, completely all Tefzel wire, and you know, flame retardant, braid, you know, all the best stuff. So we used a nice little GEP 24 position or 48 position, I can't remember what size this one is, but nice little GEP fuse and relay box, which is nice and simple, easy to integrate. So we've got fuel, coil, or EFI, coil and fuel pump, and then a relay for each of those as well. Simple power to the battery, earth, our ignition trigger, and that is a Deutsch DT4 connector, which actually connects it to the harness. So that easily just unplugs from the harness, and the harness is completely standalone outside of that. That's literally the only thing that's integrating it to the car, which makes it super easy. So all Deutsch connectors, all the best stuff in the business. But yeah, really happy with this work. Our Haltech Elite 750. WB01 module, so we have wideband, Elite 750. We'll have boost control as well as fuel pressure, oil pressure. I'm hoping to control the fans, but I still need to look into the fan wiring with the ECU. I think that's more or less it. And then your standard stuff, intake, air temp and all that. But yeah, I've actually built the loom. It is built to allow for future expansion to go to sequential ignition. So there's enough power and all 6 ignition triggers to actually in future, if someone wants to, just go to complete individual coils instead of a single coil. Just have to remake this little sub loom. So nice little injector sub loom, ignition sub loom, which can easily just swapped out in the future if people want to go sequential. I did put in a provision for a two wire IACV, although we don't have one at the moment, but I did put that in there in case it doesn't want to run without one and we do end up having to buy one. But yeah, fuel pressure, oil pressure, yeah, all the stuff, all the gear, TPS, intake air temp. Yeah, really happy. And then obviously a Mac valve for boost control. So yeah, a lot of work, a lot of time, but I do actually quite enjoy it. It has been good fun. So now it's time to actually get it all into the car. Just going to be using onboard map as well. So we pretty much used all of the inputs that the 750 offers, with all the most important things, obviously being fuel pressure and oil pressure. They're 2 pretty important things to wire in to have engine protection. So yeah, we'll start integrating that. So as well as that, you would have noticed, or you might not have noticed, but anyway, we are converting from the old coil setup on the RB30 to LS1 coil. So we're going to be running just a single LS1 coil. That way we don't have to worry about modules or anything like that. It's got an igniter inbuilt, so internal igniter, all the rest. So single plug to that. Easy, happy days. So just made a new lead to go from our LS1 coil to our distributor as well. So we'll replace that. So yeah, basically full conversion to Haltech Elite 750 LS1 coil, forward facing turbo, and yeah, we'll have to remake a few things. And we've got to remake this charge pipe, and we will remake this charge pipe even though we don't have to, just because of where it runs. And we've got everything here to fit the new turbo with the right fittings, and Bo has already modified the dump pipe for our V-band dump flange to suit the pulsar. We just have to weld in our port for our oxygen sensor. So yeah, it's all happening. Anyway, I'll film the rest of what's going on as we go. That was a pretty big explanation of everything though, but yeah, I wasn't going to make any content of this, but I was that stoked with that loom and I just wanted to show it off on YouTube, so very happy. Righto guys, fast forward 2 days, here we are, boom. How good does that look? Sort of wish I did decide to make content on this before we started, so that you could have seen what this looked like before we started, before I decided to just make a video halfway through doing the job. But anyway, needless to say, it looks a lot better now. It looks really nice. So we've got our Pulsar GDX 3076 Gen 2, we've got our forward-facing Elite Fabworks Plenum, looking awesome. We've remade all the charge piping to try and keep it out of the wheel wells as much as possible, because it was a fairway in the wheel well, in the way that at full bump this wheel would have just hit the charge piping before. So remade all the charge piping, you know, remade dump, lots going on here. So full catch can setup that we installed, which breathes back to the intake. And yeah, so happy days. We've just finished setting up all of our fuse box and getting our triggers and everything sorted, tracing the wiring for these fans. We've got these fans hooked up to the ECU now so that they're ECU triggered. However, I do not expect that these fans are going to do very well at all. This thing is going to have issues with heat because these fans look terrible. Both fans are run through one 20 amp fuse. So the fact that both of those fans together are drawing less than 20 amps is a pretty good indication of how much they're not going to do. So yeah, this is definitely going to be a problem. But anyway, all I can do is advise the customer, try and get our steady state tuning done as fast as possible, which shouldn't be a problem because we've got onboard wideband that should be pretty quick for steady state, and hopefully move into our power runs pretty quickly so that there's a lot of cool down time and we can get through this tune without it having slowing us up too much. So just doing all our firmware updates and everything on the ECU, and then I'll start getting together a base map, get all our sensor calibrations and everything into the ECU, right, into the right inputs and everything else, get it all set up, get the base map all set up, and then I'll time the thing, and then we'll probably have to change the plugs because the NIS tune was running so terribly that I'm pretty sure it's fouled the plugs, and the plugs, it's not going to want to fire. But once we do that and we time this thing, we're good to go. Yeah. Righto guys, so we had a few dramas. We had to change out the plugs. The plugs were all completely dead, but with the new plugs, this is the most satisfying thing about doing these jobs and doing wiring, which I love so much, is when you just chuck it all in the... Oh, I've already put the key away. Damn it. I already started packing up. So anyway, you'll have to just trust me when I tell you. I chucked it all in the car, connected it all. I did have to repin the trigger and home. I had them the wrong way around. So I just had to repin those in the ECU plug. But apart from that, hit the key, starts up, purrs like a walrus, just runs along, and no wiring issues. And that's just one of the things that I just really like about doing it. But we do have other issues. So have a mean manifold leak. Sound like a tractor. Thought, hey, we'll just try and just nip them up. The top one on number one, I managed to get like about 1/8 of a turn just to get it a little bit nipped up. Chuck the ratchet on the very front one on the bottom, and literally just no resistance at all, just snapped. So, and like leaking real bad. So we got other issues. This hot side's gonna have to come back off. All of it's gonna have to come back off so that the manifold can get fixed. We'll have to try and extract that stud. Very, very frustrating. Definitely don't have time to be doing that. Not something we counted on. It's another, days, potentially more, depending how the stud extraction goes and what other problems we find when we pull it off. But it's, a day that I hadn't accounted for when we have so much other stuff to do. So very, very frustrating. But all the wiring, the ECU, all works awesome. So that's great. Righto, guys. Back here. It's Saturday morning. Bit of a fresh head. Had a sleep. Not so frustrated. But Bo was analysing this pretty closely yesterday afternoon. I had enough. I didn't even want to know about it. But as we sort of discovered, looking at the stud that came out of it, you can see the end of it's like quite rusty. It's quite corroded. Get out in the sun. So like that's not just snapped. That's not a fresh snap. That's obviously been broken for quite some time. And then we were looking at the fact that it looks more like it actually pulled the threads out of the head rather than snapped the stud. So, looking at that, it's obvious that the stud was only in the head 2 or 3 threads, and it's pulled it, and it's not freshly snapped because that's very corroded on the backside. So got here this morning and just chucked a screwdriver down the hole, and it does go a long way down the hole. So it appears that it was just a simple fact that the stud wasn't in the head properly. So I'm hoping that I can run a tap down that hole, get another stud, and just try and get it all the way down, seated in the head properly. Hopefully the threads further deep in the head are not damaged. It's only pulled the first sort of 2 or 3 out. And hopefully we can just get another stud in there and do it up. So fingers crossed it's that simple and we can get out of it that easily. So we'll see how we go. Woohoo! Yeah. Righto, guys, so our stud worked. We've got a new stud in there and it did actually tighten down. So that whole thing worked. But this gasket is just completely cooked and it's just not sealing at all. So we've got it down tight and it will tighten down, which is good. So at the very least, we don't have to worry about extracting any broken studs, but unfortunately this whole hot side's gonna have to come back off to put a new gasket on it and fix it properly. So very frustrating, very annoying. But anyway, like I said, silver lining is at least we don't have to worry about extracting any broken studs, which is a plus. So there's that. Anyway, next week's problem now. Righto, guys, so we finally have a dyno back. So we can finally tune this thing. It's been patiently waiting this whole time, and all new software. How cool. So anyway, this is the first thing to be tuned on the new software on the dyno, so let's get it done, see what it does. All right, guys, been a relatively successful tune so far. Dyno's doing well, which is wicked, so everything's all good. It is blowing out spark, even on gate pressure. Boost, as you can see, it's coming up to about 10, runs away up to about 14, and yeah, already blowing out spark. I'm gonna keep trying a bit more dwell time on this LS1 coil, but yeah, we'll just see how it goes. I'm happy to put a little bit more boost into it if we can get there, but obviously if it's if it's going to be blowing out boost, there's not much point. Now I did have an issue before. I already deleted the grass, but I did have an issue with fuel pressure a bit earlier. Fuel pressure was starting to drop off, but I just turned it off, let it cool down for a little bit. Got back into it, did 7 runs back to back, like 7 runs, and had no fuel pressure issues. So not sure what's going on there. Just gonna do a few more runs now, like back to back, see if this fuel pressure issue rears its head. But I guess, if it's not gonna be there, there's no point wasting time and money chasing a ghost of a fuel pressure issue. So we'll just see how it goes. But yeah, it's breaking down under load a bit. Really needs individual coils, but try a bit more dwell time and see how it goes. Rightio guys, that's a wrap. I just got to sort out this little bit of a fuel leak from the fuel pump hanger in the tank. I think it's just a return line. Might need to put another hose clamp on it. But yeah, big girl's all sorted out. As you can probably hear from those runs, a little bit of breakdown under load, still blowing a little bit of spark out. I don't want to wind any more, or I don't want to try and get any more dwell into this coil, just because obviously it's a single coil firing 6 times, well 3 times the revolution. So, you know, it's working pretty hard. So I don't want too much dwell in it. So I don't want to wind any more dwell in it off, you know, trying to rely on the single coil. So we ended up at a 257. It's just a smidge under 260 horsepower at the wheels, which is, I reckon, pretty good. And finally, this car, after all this time, is actually running well and right. And yeah, again, no issues with fuel pressure that time. So I don't know what the hell go is, but I've got the, well, obviously we put the onboard fuel pressure sensor in it. So I've set a engine protection for the differential fuel pressure. So if it if the differential drops too much, it's going to go into a engine protection mode. So there's that, as well as oil pressure, engine protection, etc. But yeah, happy days, good stuff. And yeah, to our surprise, whatever these fans are, working well enough, keeping this thing cool enough. And also with all of the electrical stuff that's going on, the old RB30 alternator's still keeping it a consistent 14 volts. So all of those things that we thought were going to be big issues turned out to not be issues, which is really good news for the owner, because it's obviously less money that he has to spend. And yeah, after owning the car for over 2 years and never having it really running right, correctly at all, he is really looking forward to getting this thing back and just, you know, enjoying it and going for a drive. So again, like I said, loom's built for future expansion. Everything's there to go coil on plug, or not coil on plug, but at least individual coils, if he wants to in future. Once he does that, we've got more ignition, we can just wind some more boost into this thing and make a heap more power if we want to. But at the moment, that's what's holding us up, is that single coil. So that's a wrap on the Patrol. So thanks for watching as always, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out, see you, bye.